Alright, so I'll take you through 1 point, 2 point, 3 point perspective, how to use them and cheating with your artwork, cheat codes, and just how practical they are and how I don't. Just knowing it is enough. You don't have to get a ruler and measure out every single painting every time you do something, but just knowing it is enough. 1 point perspective. So, imagine this is your horizon line. You see that? If this one's any better. VP stands for vanishing point. If you're looking at train tracks or looking at a highway going off in the distance, it looks like an upside down V. That's how I used to tell kids how to draw, just put an upside down V. So, if you have your upside down V like that, that's sort of like, you know, would be something disappearing slowly into the background. So here's where it gets tricky. Let's just say we want to do a grid in one perspective. Actually, let's just use this piece of stick here as a ruler. So what we're doing here is, with 1 point perspective, we're not really concerned about getting these lines in. Join us. So you use a T-square or a set square to get those lines. These just have to be parallel with the page. Because there's only 1 point of perspective and that's there. If I measure that, move it to there, move it to there. So what I've done there is I've got this here and I've made it equal there. And there, I'm going to rule all those lines back to that 1 point of perspective. Okay. Easy so far? Good. What I want to do next is create something like a footpath. I'm going to just guess, imagine a line here somewhere. It's going to be probably about half. If you wanted to actually put a size on it, you probably put half of that. And you see what we've got here is what looks like cracks in footpath, all in perspective, all going back to 1 point. So that's like the trick our eyes play, so things just slowly vanish. So if you know that, whenever you, again, if you're not using a ruler, if you're just drawing a tabletop, if you draw a tabletop, those edges of the table are going to go away somewhere off into the distance. That's easy to do, like train tracks, to do a footpath, to do anything like that. But let's say I want to do a chessboard or a tiled floor. It's no good measuring that going there because it has to be narrower. And we have to know how much does it have to be narrow by. And so the easy trick here is to pick any one of these and let's just go to the middle one because it's easy and go diagonal. So from that corner to that corner, if I rule a diagonal line through there, where it hits this line here, get my set square, T-square, whatever, and do line through there. And what's happened is that this is slightly bigger than that one. And I can do it all the way up. I can keep going and going. It doesn't matter which squares I pick. I might grab these two squares, for example. I'm going to get my stick. So if I grab that corner, and that corner, do a line up wherever it hits one of these lines. That one got me too. You see how they look like they're diminishing, they're getting smaller. That's the way of measuring. You measure all the way up till you know, about here somewhere, this is going to be too thick. I find that for myself, I tend not to use a ruler too much in my artwork, but I will use a ruler with pencil and then go over it. Probably freehand over it. So say I wanted to do this, I would probably just, you know, with a paintbrush, a pen, whatever, go over these freehand. Probably just because I like the human hand, I'm not that keen on mechanical lines. So yeah, if I was doing a drawing, a painting of this, I don't mind all the little inconsistencies where it goes wrong, where it's not perfect. I'm pretty slow because of this. Yeah. There you go. It's a bit wavy, but get the idea? 1 point perspective. How much do you?
I know, so I'm going back, I had my head down, sorry.
Yeah.
Get the first line, the distance, yeah, between that and the next line, yeah, what was that?
Guess. I guessed it.
Is there a mathematical?
Not really, but if you go more than halfway, it looks a bit odd. So it relies upon where you actually are. If you're laying on the ground or if you're up in the air. So, give you an example, grab my eraser. You all got that.
Yeah, it would depend what you want to place on the landscape as well, wouldn't it?
Yes, and that's something I want to talk about after, is the placement of objects. So, if you have a highway, that view there, that's sort of like, you know, a drone's eye view or a bird's eye view, because you're sort of looking down onto a highway. If you are laying on the highway, like your snake's eye view, it would be like that. So, you know, there you go, a little snake on the side of the road, as they do at night time in Texas. So you see how wide that is. So the wider that is, the closer you are to that highway or train tracks or whatever it is you're drawing.
Yeah.
So the one idea is just, you know, I suppose if you were with a normal human eye view, it would be like that. That's like a 5-lane highway. I guess it'd be something like that. Have a guess. sort of between the worm's eye view, the bird's eye view is sort of like, I guess it's the human's eye view. So, unless I want to do the trench scene on the Death Star in the first Star Wars movie, I usually wouldn't bother too much about it, but it is good to know that in your head, so that if you're going to draw a table, and say I'm going to draw the top of the table or something like that, I know that this is going to be bigger than this, that these lines here are going to end up converging somewhere. I just know that it's in your head. You get that in your head, and every time you do a drawing or a painting, you're just marking something out, you think, oh, okay, that has to be like that. Now that's 1 point perspective. Two-point perspective gets a bit more complicated. So, we're going to make a little house with two-point perspective with a gable roof. Just because we can. Another thing is, when you start off, there's a certain amount of guesswork, and you're sort of looking at an object in front of you and think it's sort of roughly like that. That's your starting point. So, let's say we're looking at the corner of a house. We're going to do one vanishing point here. 1, that's 1, 2. Vanishing point number 1 and 2. I'll bring it up a bit actually. Okay, so what I find with this is that this angle here has to be greater than 90 degrees. So this won't work if I was to bring it right down here. It's not going to really work because you're actually looking down at the corner of a house. You think the corner of a house, okay, if it's 90 degrees, okay, you can see it like that. But as it goes like that, the corner of the house is not 90 degrees, it just gets wider, like the wide highway. So never, make sure this one's always greater than 90 degrees.
So what's that, the inner angle?
This is the corner of our building.
Yeah.
So
that becomes the inner angle
yeah.
of the shape that you're creating, which
Yes.
is the chevron.
Yeah, I guess so, yes, it's to the
Creating a
outside.
chevron, so it becomes the inner angle has to be greater than 180.
Greater than 90.
Greater than 90.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Right, let's take this out so we don't confuse ourselves. Now, at this stage, we'd still be using a set square T-square to do our uprights. 3-point, we're going to delete that. So just say I've got, okay, we're going to do this building here. It's going to be that wide. It's going to have a narrow, let's say it's narrow that side. Back over there. So all I've done here is I've just ruled 3 lines upwards. That's the corner there. That's the height from there. Roll a line back to vanishing point 1. And vanishing point 2. So what we've got here is what looks a bit like a container. If I take out that horizon line so you can't see the horizon line. Okay, there's like a big square, big rectangle in perspective. Next, let's make it a gable. Let's put a gable roof on it. Now at some stage we're going to have to put the top of the gable here somewhere, but how do we know where to put it? There's two ways you can do this. Okay, let me see, about halfway is there, I guess. And if you put a line that side of halfway, you know this side's a little bit bigger than that. There is a more accurate way of doing it, which is also very simple. That is, you draw an X on one end here. X there and there. Now you have dead centre of that square end there. You can now draw with a fair bit of confidence where that's going to be, which still looks like the centre even though it's not, it's off centre slightly. Because, even though you're probably not noticing it that much because this is very narrow, this is slightly bigger than this. Okay, just determine how big it's going to be. Is it going to be a church? Is it going to be a house? Then I'll just make just a gable roof. There you go. Just choose how high you want to make it and then you just add those lines to it. Now, top of the gable there, going back to vanishing point 1. And you can see you've got the top of the roof. Now what we're going to do, we're going to cheat a little bit. So I mean, I guess you could get that angle and pop it there to create the roof. But the thing is, it's not quite accurate because what you've got now is another vanishing point. So this would continue up there, probably hitting the ceiling where the next vanishing point is, and that would be there. So what you do is you'd make this go in a little bit. So if that is going in a little bit that way, we're now sort of seeing this side of the roof as one big panel which is on its side and the other vanishing points going up into, like I say, hitting the ceiling somewhere.
So that's a guesstimate.
That's my guesstimate, yeah. So I don't think it's going to quite reach there, but it's not too far. If you have a big enough piece of paper, yeah, you can
plot
put it
that
there.
out, yeah.
But I'm just making you aware that there is another point there. And it's like, if you are aware of the rules, you can just sort of guess. Okay, you can get away with a lot if you know the rules.
So as you become more experienced and you put more time in, the mental imagery helps you set the picture out anyway.
Yeah.
Because of that, learning the depth and how to...
And it depends how far you want to take it, because some people are going to take it as this, you know, really spot-on illustration where everything's absolutely perfect. Other people might have more expressionistic view of it.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you know these rules really well, if you're really, really familiar with them, instead of straight lines, you can do sort of bent lines like this.
Yeah.
Okay, you can still, and it's going to be this really weird, wacky, distorted world,
Yeah.
and you can do that if you know these rules.
Keeping to these rules.
All you're doing is you're just bending lines instead of doing straight ones, and that can be really fun. Okay, so if we can, okay, you can break this down as many times as you want. Okay, you can break those down, you can sort of measure those out. You can put a window here. The top and the bottom of that window on this side is going back to vanishing point 1. Take that away, I might confuse. Putting a door in, same thing. Just guessing how big it's going to be, but the top has to go back to vanishing point 1. take a load of this out. And we're going to pop a window in this side as well. And knock that back to vanishing point 1. Or vanishing point 1.2 rather. And that's 2-point perspective. That's it. I might talk some fuel and coffee. And we're ready for 3-point perspective. So 3-point perspective, although you hardly ever use it, again, you know these rules and you'll always be able to draw a cube or something out of your head. So, put in a horizon line over here. There you go. Vanishing point 1, vanishing point 2. So, bottom of the skyscraper is going to be here somewhere. So just like we did in 2-point perspective, those lines go there. We're going to rule the line upwards. Make sure that's sort of straightish. We'll put the vanishing point up here. Right. Okay, side of the building there and there, going up the vanishing point 3. You don't want to make this structure too wide.
Does vanishing point 3 have to be at right angles from the juncture of VP and V2? So you can have it lopsided like that?
Can be, but you're going to have a bit of a lopsided building.
Yeah, I know, but I just want to see.
Okay, about here somewhere, I'm going to choose the top of the building. It's a skyscraper. Goes back to there. Goes back to there. And here is my building. Oh, it could even be a big obelisk, couldn't it? Okay, so that's sort of like a human eye view of a big large building. Right, ready for the next one? Take this off. So this time we are looking at the top of a big, large building. So it's going to be below the horizon line.
And what's this perspective?
3-point perspective again.
3-point below the horizon, yeah?
Yes. So first what we're doing is 2-point perspective, which is okay, so these lines are going back to vanishing point 1, vanishing point 2. So what you have here is just a flat square in perspective below the horizon line. This time I'm going to put vanishing point 3 down here. We're going to take the corner and the sides down to vanishing point 3. Now go to decide where I'm going to put the base of the building. Decide where the base of this is. Hopefully it's not too much more than, much less than 90 degrees. Move it here, I think. It's more like a cube, but anyway. Just get down a little bit more. Like I say, you can't really get more than 90 degrees. Still good for a bit more. Try down here. Yeah, I think it still works. Car parks there. So there's our building. Does that work? Works good. So what we've got here is that this length is bigger than this one. This length here is bigger than that one. This is bigger than both those sides. That's why it works in perspective. So now, how do you use that without going to all this trouble every time? Practical use of perspective has a few. Let's just say I want to draw a brick. Okay? A brick roughed out. What I know about this brick is I know, okay, this probably should be like this. Go on straight. I might bring that one in just a little bit. So what I've done here, I've brought those sides in a little bit to an imaginary vanishing point down under my feet somewhere. Have that one there. But I'm going to make this one probably come up at a little bit more of an angle. I'll close that gap a bit. Same the other side. I'm going to close that gap a little bit. This here is going to have to close the gap there a bit, which I've already done. And that one there, I'm bringing that down there, that down there. I'm just making them a little bit smaller. So there's my brick. Good. And the way I tend to draw is, you know, I'll tell you, you've disguised that in cracks and detail. There's enough perspective there. I'll try to go there a bit more. There's enough perspective to get away with it. I don't need to measure it all, I just know that this has to be smaller, that has to be smaller, that has to be smaller. If I'm doing a group of bricks, then it starts getting problematic. But if I'm just doing one by itself, that's good enough, that's near enough. That's all I have to know. The other thing is perceptions and placement on the ground. And sometimes you can use this to your advantage. Okay, still cartoon figure. is going to be standing here. There you go. Fall over. So that's the horizon line, that's where he is. What would happen if I did a figure about half the size here, about there, right on that horizon line. Now, does that work even though I've done half the size? Or does that look like a giant on the horizon?
Giant on the horizon.
Yeah. So imagine if I did it the same size, he'd be massive. So the placement here, wherever you put these natural objects, can determine the size of something. So let's just say I do one exactly the same size. So I have to measure this guy. About that big. I'm just going to put him, not even that high, about here. He does go over the horizon line. So he's the same size, the same height. Once you do that, he's a giant. But here's another interesting thing, another little trick into the shadows. Got a shadow here, he's got a shadow here. He's no longer a giant, he's somebody jumping up in the air. So this is messing with people's perceptions.
It also makes the horizon closer, you know, it could be inside a room where...
Yeah, whereas before it was way off in the distance.
well, before it was a distance horizon.
That's right. So these simple lines communicate a message quite clearly. Another way you use perspective, this will be the last little point. And you find this in figure drawing all the time, is that, let's just say I've got a person here, slightly realistically, and we've got their hands, let's do this really roughly. If I make this hand exactly the same size as this one, never looks right. It always tends to look like this hand's bigger than that one. Now, sometimes you're looking, you're drawing, you're seeing it, it looks like they're exactly the same. But when you draw it down, if your line goes 1 millimetre one way or another, it can make all the difference. And that's why it is probably better to make this hand consciously slightly smaller. This one here, slightly beefier.
Again, that would be relative to the things you have in depth of field, wouldn't it?
It would, but in this case the hands are pretty close to each other like that. Yeah, if I put my hand like that, and this one like that.
And if you had, for example, if you had a warrior in front of 1,000 soldiers which disappeared into the distance of the horizon, you wouldn't lose that much in the sense of scale of the individual who was at the front because of the depth of field given by the background.
Yep, and that's right. And the closer you are to an object, the more perspective is on that object. So like, if I put my hand right in your face and this one away, they're going to look, it's going to look 5 times bigger. But what I'm saying here is, even though here there's not a particular big depth of field, but what I'm saying is that if you do this hand slightly smaller than this one, this is a cheat code, okay? This is how you cheat. Make this one slightly bigger, and so even if it's by a whisper,
Yeah.
it's going to look right. But if they're exactly the same size,
It throws an imbalance.
throws it out. And what's worse is if you see them the same size and you draw them the same size, and then when you're doing this line, that line just goes over a little bit, and this one goes under a little bit, that one technically smaller, it looks way out. So the cheat, it's like one of your cheat codes, make this hand bigger.
Right, okay.
Okay,
Right.
it just
It's
works.
just one of those.
Trust me,
things
it
that work.
works.
Yeah.
So we have a bit of artistic licenses where you can do things that work. Right, any other questions?
That sounds good.
Good, excellent.